Look at that. Good morning, Mr. Gray. Can you hear us?
There he goes. Now try.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Gray. Can you hear us? Okay, perfect. You're on mute.
Yes, I can. Thank you.
All right, we're going to get started. We just want to make sure we had good media. Thank you.
No problem.
We're going to call this meeting to order. Will y'all please stand for the invocation?
Hamilton, would you? Certainly. If you'll join me. Lord, we are so grateful and we are just so full of joy for the amazing rain that you have brought to our lands, Lord. And it is just such a gift. And we hold on to your word that you bring those rains in due season. And Lord, we knew we were due and you delivered. So thank you for that. We just praise you for your greatness. We thank you for hearing our prayers and answering them. Lord, we just thank you for your son. We ask that you are with each and every person here today, that you help everyone return to their places safely. And Lord, just be with this governing body. Help us all to reflect you in all that we do every day. And we just, again, thank you for your son. It's his name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico as the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Good morning. Okay, first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
So moved.
I got a motion. Do I hear a second? Got a motion, a second to approve the agenda. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Second, approval of the minutes from the May 28th meeting.
Move that we approve the minutes as submitted. Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have approval of accounts payable and payroll.
I move to approve the accounts payable and payroll. Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve accounts payable and payroll. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. This time we are at public requests. Does anyone have anything they would like to speak? Okay. That one was quick. Okay, moving on. Elected officials and department heads. We'll start with detention with Miss Ramsey.
I have a quick report for you guys. Good morning. Our facility count this morning is at 48. We have no more Clay County. That's why we're low, guys. Females are 11, males are 37. We have 4 out of county detainees, 3 for Curry, 3 for Chavez, 1 for Curry. We billed Quay last month $4,250. For our MAP program, we have 13 individuals. We have 13 in group counseling, 13 in individual counseling. We have 7 on medications. For our GED, we have 2 participants. Yoga, we have 12, and parenting, we have 3 at this time. We plan on all of those things growing as well. We're building out our programs a little bit more. That's all I have. I stand for any questions.
Bill Coy.
No query.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to grants. Miss Weems.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I just have a quick update on where we're at on our grants. In the end of this year, we'll be closing out the junior bill for the sheriff's office, capital outlay for the sheriff's vehicles, the raid for the tire amnesty days that we did. There's a New Mexico Association of Counties for COVID PPE that's coming to a close that we've had for a couple of years. And then the Clean and Beautifuls was submitted and approved, and we're just awaiting reimbursement on that one. Grants in process is the REC grant, and that is expended and encumbered in excess of what, but that's supposed to close out June 24th. They've talked about giving us an extension, but we have not seen that paperwork yet. So we worked really hard to go ahead and expend it just in case or get it encumbered. Capital outlay grants, LGRF for CAP, co-op, and school bus are ongoing and in progress. And USDA for fire truck for Arch Fire Department is ordered and also in process. We got notification that we were awarded capital outlay for FY25, $350,000 for the purchase of a distributor truck and $500,000 for the purchase of a chip spreader. We're awaiting those agreements from the state. And then we have submitted for FY25 applications for LGRF for co-op, CAPS, and school bus, awaiting notification to see if we were awarded in those amounts. We submitted 2 applications for TPF for maintenance of roadways. We did submit for congressional direct spending to Senator Martin Heinrich's office for upgrade to the emergency warning system, Arch Fire Department, 2nd Main. And they received like 600. I got an email that they received 600 requests statewide or for our region, and 350 are moving forward, and those 2 were chosen to keep going. So hopefully FY25 congressional direct spend to Representative Teresa Ledger Fernandez. And we submitted 3 projects on that one: Arch, 2nd Main, the emergency warning system, and the courthouse brick repointing. And she did not, their little committee did not choose any of our projects on that one. We also submitted congressional direct spending to Senator Ben Ray Lujan for the Arch Fire Main, the warning system, and the brick repointing, and all were chosen to move on to the appropriations committee. So hopefully we'll get something. We submitted Clean and Beautiful for FY25, RAID FY25, and then we just recently submitted for the EMPG grant for a 50-50 match for a specialist, emergency management specialist. And I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, right now we'll move on to healthcare with Ms. Weems.
I'll move to go into indigent, Madam Chair.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor? Okay. Dennis, we're going to go into indigent. Do you vote yes? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. Okay. I just didn't hear you. Sorry.
Okay, good morning. Again, we have received 4 claims for a total of $1,754. Total approved were 0. Total disapproved was that same amount, $1,754. We received 1 from Fedco for $720, and that patient was brought in by another entity. Roosevelt General Hospital submitted 2 claims, $1,001. One of those patients at the date of service had Medicaid, and the other one was brought in by another entity, so that one was disapproved. Concord Radiology submitted 1 for $32. That patient also had Medicaid at the time of service, so that one was denied. And I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you.
I'll move to come out of indigent, Madam Chair.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor to come out of indigent? Any opposed? You're out of indigent. I'll entertain a motion to approve indigent.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor to approve indigent?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to road 1, I'm guessing Miss Hamilton. Nope, you're good.
Yes, I am covering for him today, and I have his report. He had a conflict. So the team has completed South Rosa Road 15 from P to Q. The next one they will be moving to is South Rosa Road P, 10 to 11. This week, we're again very, very grateful for the moisture. Can't get those pieces of equipment on most roads. So they diverted and started trimming trees. So they've been trimming trees on 20, then they'll move to 16, and they've got to get some knocked out on P so that we have room to do the road improvements. Yesterday, Juan lost one of his lives. I think he has like 9 because they were trimming trees and went to pick up a branch, and there was a giant rattlesnake like curled up. So they ended that project at that point and decided they're going to go back out with the backhoe and some other stuff because they were doing it with handheld chainsaws and just trying to get things cleaned up. And so now going to do a little different approach. So safety first and foremost. Thankfully, nobody was. It's just a scary time, and they're out early. It seems like because we warmed up early. So just very aware of that one. Cattle guards are ongoing. They had 3 that were remaining. They were down in the Elida area, north of Elida, or let's see, moving north. So they have 3 down there to finish. They've got caught up for the most part with the sand because they knocked out BA. G is still narrow, but does have a path through it. I know those are some of the ones y'all called about. They've been making rounds with trash. That still continues to be a problem. As of right now, we have blades in the Floyd area cleaning up the washouts, and then they'll return back to the Mesa Road and hit that route and keep working. Town blade is around X and 2, again, working on washouts and those that are reported. There's one down AK and 38, and then they'll hit 35 and 30 and Moon Ranch and cut through there. 206 and 18, and then they'll come back toward Arch because that's where that one ends. 32 and M is another one. And then on 20, they'll be back to those projects next week. So they're just trying to deal with some of the washouts, the big things. The great thing is there's not near as many washouts. We had a pretty heavy rain in Toller where it came a little faster. They're dealing with some issues down in the Kenna area and stuff like that. So they'll get around to everywhere as quick as they can. But they're trying to hit the key ones as they go, and then they'll get back to their routes. We have 2 in process of hiring on over there and still doing interviews. The great work that they did last week, so road maintenance and detention all worked to clear the front of the pavilion and get that ready for the next phase of construction that was awarded to Nixon Enterprises. So they've got that groundwork prepared. Gary led the charge, and they all hopped in and helped. And I know they had some detainee labor out there, so it looks good getting it cleaned up, getting those trees cut down, and then they'll do some stump grinding, the contractor and everything, and get everything else finished. So ready to go on that one. So that is the completion of the road report, and I would stand for any questions or requests to make note of. Any calls, any that are not on the list? I've got the list ready if I need to pull it up and add to it. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Moving on to Ms. Hamilton, Manager's Report.
Great. Okay. So the first thing we have mentioned in previous meetings that we were looking to schedule a commissioner luncheon to discuss the Crisis Triage Center. And this is again for that behavioral health collaborative consortium that we're working through. That's going to be Monday, June 24th from 12 to 2:30 at the Clovis Civic Center. They'll be down presenting an update, talking about the first 10 million that was awarded through the state legislature and where we're at. They do need to know how many plan to attend so that they can get a count for the Civic Center because it will be a luncheon. So if you can please let me know if you can look at your calendars for Monday, June 24th, again from 12 to 2:30 in Clovis at the Civic Center. And then if you can get those to me maybe by the end of the day today, if you don't know now, then that'd be great. If not, I'll follow up with you in the morning. Okay. I'm really excited for y'all to hear some of the updates on that and where they're at. So it's looking really good. We did get the quarterly economic summary out that just got released where it reflects Roosevelt County. It talks about our matchable tax gross receipts. So we'll hit the positive first. We are seeing strong growth in accommodations and arts and entertainment. So again, that hospitality industry is coming back, and construction we saw another 71%. Real estate, rental, leasing, small growth as well. And well, that one was a larger growth, and then retail trade was just about flat. Wholesale trade had good growth. The struggle is that we saw a lot more declines. So we saw declines in administrative support, waste management, agriculture saw a 30% decline, educational services 20%, management, manufacturing, mining, quarry, and oil and gas extraction, public administration saw a decrease, transportation and warehousing, all of those. And so we're sitting at about a 0 to 2% year over year change. So at least it's not negative. The problem is we're just seeing a lot of industries right now struggling with just what we're dealing with and what everyone is seeing in terms of the inflation being so stubborn in employment, and then the wages that are just being demanded in the workplace. So did want to highlight that for y'all. We will need to have a special commission meeting. It would basically be probably 1, maybe 2 items. The assets need to be declared by the end of the year. Got to get the asset report out. That's on my to-do list for this week. So in my spare time, I'm doing finance too, as y'all know. And so we'll get those out. But I wanted to look at June 25th. I don't know if that's going to be an option. That would be a Tuesday. We could have it at 9. We should be done by 9:30 or sooner. If that works for the commission, again, it would just be one, basically at this point, one agenda item for the assets. But that is a requirement that we have. So if y'all can check your calendars, then I can follow up with y'all just to make sure I can get a quorum here for that.
Mrs. Hamilton, I have a eye doctor's appointment in Amarillo that day. I'm not gonna be able to come to the meeting, or I wouldn't be able to come to that either, but I think for that one, I don't know, we date is for quorum.
Yes, if we can get a quorum on that day. If not, we can look at a different one. So I'll follow
I
up.
can do the 25th. You want to just get it done, I can do that, or I can do a different day, either way, whatever. But I don't have anything that day.
Do you think you'll be available? Okay, then the 25th would be great if you're okay with that, just to get a quorum and get that handled. Okay, perfect. Thank you. We do have interviews in process for the finance position. HR has sourced a strong pool of applicants, and we are working through the first round, and we'll advance to the second round. We have a good committee that is graciously volunteered to serve, so those are moving. We have applications rolling in for your county manager, so that's all working and going through too. We have the year-end fiscal wrap-up that has started. The covered stalls are ongoing. The pavilion is going to be started, and then we'll do a little bit of work before the fair, and then the majority of work, of course, will happen after the fair. The other thing that I wanted to touch on was last week I was afforded the opportunity to attend the International County City Manager Association, ICMA conference. It was all a regional conference focused on artificial intelligence, or AI. And the fact that it is coming, figuring out how we can use it, how we can engage in it, how we need to prepare for it, what it needs to look like in terms of local government. There's definitely going to be a need for a policy. There may be some staff that are already using it now to help generate letters and do different things. And as we talked about at the conference, you have to be so careful, because if staff are using like the free ChatGPT or something, then they're dumping data in. And unless they click the little magic box, then all of a sudden the data belongs to who they're dumping it into. And so those are the things that we need policy to be able to guide and really help. They did touch on the ways that it is helping to fill gaps in positions. They talked about how it can help with property assessments and property valuations out in the field and what they're looking at. Documentation, letters, job descriptions, grant applications, all the administrative type stuff. They're seeing a lot of success in using it in investigations, because it's able to take a lot of the data, and instead of having people have to comb through piles of data, it can take a large amount of data and go through it and find trends and hotspots and different things like that. They also talked about how they're using it in dispatch, and in Arlington, Virginia, they had over 400,000 calls coming into their dispatch center, and it's looking to eliminate about 180,000 of those calls because they're non-emergent and they shouldn't be coming in to the dispatch center anyways, but they're rerouting them. So it's the ones that have the fender bender and need a report for an insurance, or have something stolen, just need a report, or they're just calling to report that there's something, floodwaters or something along those lines. So it was very informative, a lot scary, a lot educational to hear what they're doing with AI. But the fact is, it's here and it's going to be coming. So how do we prepare for that, and what can it look like? So more to come on that. We will be working on some policy. Have not yet found another New Mexico county that has a policy in place yet. So I was able to get some leads on some sample policies from some of our larger entities throughout the nation that we can at least take some key concepts from. And then they had some great workshops on what that can look like. Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to touch on, because I've had several calls and my calls didn't stop until late last night. So there is a presence on various media where what we're seeing is people are posting things on social media that may or may not be accurate, that may or may not be fact, that may or may not be truthful, however you want to look. And they are putting that out there. And there's so many employees that are they are at their wits' end, like they're not putting the right information, or they aren't educated. They don't know what a city road is versus a county road, or what this looks like, or what our policy is. And so for me, I just felt like we had to address this in public, because our employees are our greatest asset and they're feeling attacked. But it's a First Amendment right. So people can be really brave behind a keyboard and say things online and post things and do stuff, whether it's accurate or not, and create a lot of negative energy out there, for lack of a better word. And so I just think it's something that we need to be aware of. I have tried to educate our employees, like, it's First Amendment and they have the right to say what they want to say, whether it's right or not. Don't worry. But again, when you have a spouse that has to continually see these types of posts or be exposed to this, it takes a toll on them. And so that's where we are doing our best. We try to respond appropriately if they want to submit IPRA requests, like what does that information look like? But I think it's important, obviously, that y'all are aware of that. As leaders, y'all can help educate the public and set it straight, because there are a lot of pieces of information being posted out there. There are people that choose to leave and want to say things, and we all have our version of what it is, but I think we all realize there's probably three sides to just about every perspective and every story that is out there. So just want y'all aware. I'm not sure if y'all seen all the posts, but I know it's created a lot of animosity and anxiety among a lot of people. And so as hard as it is to just ignore, that's kind of the direction we've given our employees at this point. People can say what they want to say. We're going to do our best to educate, and we are going to continue to do everything very openly and transparently. I would encourage anyone to go back and look at the meetings. Anything that they have questions on comes before the board in terms of policies and procedures and procurement and the allegations that have been made out there. A lot of it has actually been addressed in public meeting and is done appropriately according to policy. But again, when you don't do your homework or you get told the wrong information, it's just important to put it out there. So I don't know if y'all have been taking those calls yet. I'm sure you're going to hear them if not. So just so that you're aware of those issues. Okay, the end on my report. I would stand for any question.
No questions, but it's just basically opinionated news. Everybody has an opinion. And I could finish that slogan or motto, but I'm not. That's what opinions are like. Everybody will have one.
Okay, does anybody besides Dennis have anything else? Okay,
It just bugs me.
moving on to commissioners. Dennis, do you have
No,
anything?
I have.
Commissioner Savage?
No,
Nothing? Okay. I know you have something, Shirley.
I can. I wasn't gonna say nothing, but I can. Ain't scared or bashful. Me and Commissioner Dixon, we attended a meeting in Sudan, Texas, and had some lawyers on the phone. There was a phone call. There were several lawyers across the state of Texas. There was a lobbyist up in DC on the call. Had to do with the maybe the land acquisition that's fixing to take place out here at the Gruya National Refuge up and down the Texas border. And this deal is fixing to be bigger than what we initially thought. They're saying at first said 700,000 acres, and this deal looks to be like it's fixing to be bigger. They're going to try to connect, looks like the refuges like down in Millen Nature Conservancy's outfit. They're going to try to connect all of this together. And it's going to take in a radius going up there to Quay County, up there by north of Grady, all the way down, looks like into northern Lee County, out west, close to out here by the river. And then as far east as Lubbock, as far south as down there around Seagraves, Brownfield Seagraves area, Lamesa, is what the map showed that we were looking at the other day. And so anyway, we did attend that. We're ongoing with that. We got to get some information to them, and I can report back to y'all as we learn something. But I do know we haven't learned nothing. It's just what we're trying to learn what they're trying to do, what the Fish and Wildlife is trying to do to us, because it's going to affect a lot of counties, and especially if this country is put in that perpetuity deal, and then they make monuments or refuges out of it, and it goes off the tax rolls. It's going to affect us as far as the tax base goes on acreage, and that's what we're trying to learn. So that's what we did last week.
Yeah, and one thing that they were talking about on that was the reason they wanted to bring like county commissions and stuff in is because they think that it's very important that we have that the county put the heat like on the state, then the state puts it on the federal government, then the federal government puts it on the Fish and Wildlife. So it is important that we start here at home with what affects us, that we start with what we can do to help mitigate this as best we can. I know we're meeting with them again when we're at our conference at the NACO conference, or at the NMC conference. We're going to meet with them again up there. So like he said, we'll let you know what we find there.
And want to welcome, if anybody wants to, that meeting up, if y'all are going to Las Vegas, that meeting's going to be June 19th at 1:30.
1:30
and it's going to be Margaret Byfield is one that's hosting that meeting, and she's going to be there in Las Vegas at that day. So it's if y'all are going to be there, I encourage you to listen in. If y'all are going.
It's 1:30 Central Time now.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody have anything else? Okay. Moving on. Item 6A, consideration of resolution 2024-19, Roosevelt County Board of Commission in support of calling for a United States Amendments Convention. Commissioners and Mr. Garcia. Did anybody study on that anymore? Or come up with any opinions?
Well, I done some on it. I did talk with Miles Culberson, who is the chairman of the movement that's pushing this. Talked to him quite a bit. I'm not going to tell you anything you didn't already know, and Mr. Garcia can contribute however. If we look at that that resolution. Whereas I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Number one, imposing fiscal restraints on the federal government to ensure responsible fiscal management and prevent excessive government spending that burdens future generations with unsustainable debt. The people that are in favor of this constitutional amendment convention are concerned about the national debt and pass it on to posterity. And so they would like to have this convention to see if something can be done to curtail the national debt. Second thing there, limiting the power and jurisdiction of the federal government to preserve the principles of federalism, restrain the federal government from encroaching upon the powers reserved to the states and the people. Here we're just finished a minute ago talking about encroachment. So that number two, the second thing is to limit the powers of federal government. With the stroke of the pen, you can open the border. With the stroke of the pen, you can cut off the pipeline and raise the cost of gas. So they're interested in this convention, getting together and figuring out what can we do to curtail the overreach of federal government power. And then number three, limiting the terms of the office of officials and members of the Congress. People that are pushing this have the opinion that we've got a swamp. People have been in the legislature not forever. They've kind of established that swamp situation, and they're all buddies, and they not concerned about the people. They're concerned about doing things that for their own, that edify their own agenda. So those three things is what this is about. People believe that excessive government power, curtail government spending, and put term limits. And so what Miles told me was the Constitution can be amended in a couple of different ways. One by the legislature, the Senate, and the House can propose amendments and vote on them and amend the Constitution. The other way it can be amended would be a convention of the states. The state legislators all get together and they propose amendments and they vote on them. The states can amend the Constitution. And that's what this is about, is to encourage our state legislators to participate in this constitutional amendment convention. And so that if they present legislation to amend they present amendments to the Constitution, our state can have a voice and vote on it. And so that's, I don't know if y'all are understanding. I think, as far as my personal opinion, I think that this would be a good thing. A different way to maybe amend the Constitution and get around the swamp. But for our legislature to get involved, it would have to be a significant number of counties passing a resolution like this, encouraging our state legislature to get involved. So this is just a kind of grassroots movement for the counties to have input to our state legislature, so they can have input as far as having and taking part in this constitutional amendment convention.
Real quick, Madam Chair, members of the board, when you say the states can amend the Constitution, are you referring to the U.S. Constitution or New Mexico?
No, United States Constitution.
Okay,
Yeah.
I don't agree with that one. I kind of beg to differ on that. Because states can interpret the Constitution, they just can't supersede what the Constitution states. And then this is my opinion, but with the hierarchy of power, I feel it's based on our constitution. That's why we have different levels of government, federal, state, county, and municipalities. And with that, if people, I hate the word swamp. I mean, I can't stand that because we're Americans. And if people want change, the people should be the ones to make change in reference to term limits at the federal level. A lot of people have that voter apathy attitude. A lot of people say if it's not broken, why try to fix it? A lot of people just don't get engaged and try to make change on their own. So with this, I'm not gonna vote for it. I'm not gonna vote for it. I'll state that for point of verification. There's no way. I think it's just a waste of time. And once again, I don't know who's funding all this, but I hope it's not taxpayers because we've got to be good stewards of the taxpayer money. And I've taken that model from you, so it's not plagiarism. Because I know that model and I've used it a lot, Commissioner Savage. I've learned a lot from you. But yeah, I'm not into this. And I did look at it last night but yeah, let's cross that.
Paul, do you have anything?
No, I agree with Rod though,
Why not me?
because I don't agree with you.
Roy Lee, do you have anything?
Mr. Culberson did say that he would be willing to make a presentation to us. I know that he's gone to other counties and talked to commissioners individually, and explained it to them, and those other counties, there's some other counties that have passed it. But he said he'd be willing to make a presentation to us. I think that if you guys are not quite ready to vote on it, I visited briefly with Mrs. Hamilton about it might be advisable to go ahead and postpone it again so that we can get Mr. Culberson on a Zoom situation where he can talk about it. So if you're not ready to vote now, you want further information.
Okay.
We can bypass that.
Okay, Michael, I have a question for you. On that, what kind of safeguards are there? Because to me, well, I'll just say straight up, I do not think it's right to change the Constitution at all, the United States Constitution. I think it's there, and I don't think we need to be playing around with that. But my question is, what safeguards are there that we pick these three things, but once this goes ahead, that other things can't be thrown in the mix from that point? And are we opening a can of worms by doing this?
Madam Chair, I think that's a good question. I don't know for sure. I think that the way constitutional conventions are open is with specific items involved, but I don't know that that's completely correct. I don't know that somebody could not add another amendment to the mix. I could try to find that out, but I think that they're usually done on specific questions. But to answer Commissioner Lopez's question, one of the ways that the Constitution can be amended is if 3/4 of the states agree to it. So we've had, I don't know, I should know, but I think we've had something like 28 amendments at least. In the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments are considered sort of amendments. So there is a process for doing it, but it's pretty high hurdles.
I don't think it ought to be easy to just go in there and change the Constitution. though.
It's absolutely not.
38 states needs to be involved.
No, I just don't think that should be an easy process. Do you have anything? So would we?
This is item 6, consideration.
Mhm.
Madam Chairman, I'm gonna move that we table it again next meeting.
I want to second that. I'd like to listen to Mr. Culberson's.
And that we,
And I agree with Commissioner Criswell and Commissioner Savage. I'm just not educated enough with this whole thing. If we have someone that truly is an expert on this whole issue, I would welcome that in a heartbeat.
and I would suggest, I hope that we could get Mr. Culberson on the Zoom
Okay, and I'd like to have somebody from both sides, not just somebody that's for it, but
Oh,
also
I'll-
somebody that's somebody that's against, just so we have like,
We got Dennis.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody that knows.
Wow. Madam Chair, did you actually say that just now?
Yes. So I know you, Dennis. No, I mean, somebody that like knows that's been going in this and has been involved in it for a while, just like he has
I
been.
know,
So-
I know two expert testimonies where they can have a
Yeah.
rebuttal against each other and then
Right.
answer our questions
Right.
as a whole. I agree.
Okay, so we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Would you clarify the motion
That we are tabling item 6A until the next meeting.
until the next?
Do you want it the next meeting? Is that what you wanted, Roger?
Can we specify July 2nd?
Okay, July 2nd.
So not on that special meeting next week.
No, we
Table
do
until
not
July
want to
2nd.
have Only assets.
Exactly.
So it's tabled till the July 2nd next meeting. Is that correct with everyone? Yes?
Yeah, sure.
There you
Okay.
go.
And then if there is a name of the other individual, I know Commissioner Savage can get me the contact information for Mr. Culberson, but I would need additional contact
gosh.
information to invite whoever.
I don't
else,
know
so.
anybody else. I was just saying that, so I'd find somebody.
That same individual might know
He might, yeah,
or should,
right.
because they get into an argument debate, you've got to know who you're debating against.
Because I feel like we're gonna have constituents on both sides of the fence on this. So anyways, okay, moving on. What are you laughing about?
Between he and I.
There will be none of them. Item 7A, new business. Oh, we need to recess into the Board of.
No,
Commissioners-
no,
Says
these kind gentlemen.
Oh,
have been patiently
presentation. I'm
waiting.
so
They're
sorry,
ready.
y'all. I am so sorry. So presentation of Roosevelt County Facilities Solar Energy Feasibility Assessment. Sauter Miller and Associates.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm here today with Thomas Gray, and Thomas is with Positive Energy Solar, our subcontractor on this project, and I'm Dale Lyons with Sauter Miller and Associates. And the county hired us to perform a feasibility assessment of solar technology at 3 facilities, and I have a presentation. Let's see if I can share my screen here.
I was gonna say, I can pull it up or I can give you abilities to share. So it should let you, but if not, let me know.
Okay. Yeah, why don't you let me see if I can share my screen. That way I can flip through the slides. There we go. Okay. Okay, can you all see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Any chance of going full screen
Yeah.
with that?
Yep, I'm working on it. There you go. Okay, can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So, as I mentioned, we are partnered with Positive Energy Solar. They're not mentioned here. I should have put them on. But anyways, I wanted to give you all a little background, just so you could understand, for context, the analysis we did and the results we arrived at. So the facilities that the county wanted us to look at are provided electricity by Xcel Southwest Public Service, and they're billed under rate number 40, which is a secondary general service rate. The electric utilities energy charge is relatively inexpensive. It's just 1.4 cents per kilowatt hour. And then also there's a demand charge, which varies depending on the time of year, which is relatively high. And so what this means is that most of your bill for each of those facilities that we looked at is the demand charge, and just from the outset, it makes it challenging to try to reduce your total electric cost, your utility costs every month, with a net metered solar system, which is intended to offset, by producing your own power to offset the kilowatt hours that you're buying from the utility. And so just so you all understand the way the demand charge works, I've included this simple graph that shows that everything under the orange line is your consumption that the utility charges you on a kilowatt hour basis. And then the highest demand, actually over the course of the month, that is observed within a 30-minute increment, is what they charge you, is what they base your demand charge on. So even if your consumption is relatively stable throughout the entire month, and you just have one spike in demand during the entire month, that's what they base your demand charge on. So this is just by way of background, and to help you understand the context for our analysis. So, and to give you a little, some of you may already be really familiar with net metered solar, but just to explain what it is. So essentially, a net metered system is one where you are generating power and it feeds power on the customer side of the electric meter. And so in a simple diagram here, the solar panel generates power and it's consumed in your home. And then there's a bidirectional meter, or in your place of business, in the county's case. And then a bidirectional meter measures energy used and excess energy produced. So if you're producing more than you're consuming on site, that energy gets fed onto the electric grid. But if you're producing less than you're consuming, then that consumption or that production from your solar panel essentially offsets what you would otherwise have bought from the electric utility, and thereby reducing your electric costs from your utility. And so the electric utility itself has a special rate for distributed generation for solar systems or net metered systems, what they call distributed generation. And it's under their utility distributed generation program. And so what Xcel pays you, in addition to, it's sort of an additional incentive that's on top of the benefit of offsetting your own, or producing your own power and offsetting the power that you would otherwise buy from the utility. The utility has an incentive for customers that decide to build their own solar systems. And if it's a system that you've built that's less than or equal to 500 kilowatts of capacity, the utility will actually pay you 5 cents per kilowatt hour for every kilowatt hour you generate from that system for 10 years. And if your system is over 500 kilowatts total, I guess that would be multiple systems per customer, your combined capacity, the REC payment drops to about 4 cents per kilowatt hour. And if you're in this situation where you're generating more power than you're actually consuming on site, and that power goes on to the electric grid, in addition to a REC payment, the utility will pay you what's known as their avoided cost, which is about 2 cents per kilowatt hour for excess generation, which is quite a bit less than what you're being charged. Well, I guess on your sort of blended rate, if you include both your demand and your energy charge. So generally, it's not a great idea to overbuild a system with the intent of excess generation, because you're not paid very much for that power. So the idea being you essentially want to size a solar system to more or less match your actual consumption so that you're not over generating. So just to review our scope of work, we were contracted to do a solar feasibility assessment to look at the technical and financial feasibility of developing net metered solar systems at 3 facilities that the county owns and operates. That's the county detention center, the county fairgrounds arena, and the Jake Lopez Community Center. And with the goal of evaluating the feasibility of combining, in addition to looking at solar feasibility, we were also charged with looking at the possibility of developing battery energy storage and combining that with net metered solar to see if that was of any additional benefit beyond net metered solar itself. So this work involved some information gathering. We obtained, with the help of county staff, about 2 years of electric billing records. We researched the details of your electric utilities rates and their renewable energy program. We obtained the available as-built drawings for the facilities. And in the end, we were able to obtain the as-built drawings for the arena, which is a pre-engineered building. And then we scheduled and conducted a site visit in February of this year. And during that site visit, we verified the location and details about the electric meter and the utility transformer and the electric service at each building. We got a good look at the structures and possible development sites for either rooftop solar or ground mount systems nearby the actual buildings. And then we discussed how the facilities are used and their electric usage patterns with the staff that led us on the site visit. And so during the evaluation, we did a structural engineering analysis of the roof structure of the arena, because that was the one building, the one facility that doesn't have some adjacent land that's open and owned by the county where solar can be located. But the roof is, it's a sizable roof in terms of area. So our structural engineer performed a structural engineering analysis to confirm that the optimum solar system size could be located on top of that building. And then we developed some case simulations using a model to evaluate the system performance and the financial metrics for the solar systems that were considered as part of the feasibility assessment. And the inputs, the very general inputs, and Thomas is going to go into a bit more detail about the modeling itself, but just to provide a brief overview of the information that goes into the model, where we essentially analyze the performance of a optimally sized solar system for each facility based on the demand and the location. But the critical information that goes into these models is location, in terms of longitude, latitude, weather data, which all tell us the critical information about the solar irradiance, how much solar radiation each site has, the total system size or the optimum system size, which is optimized for essentially the least payback and highest net present value. The other information that's input into the model is system components and exactly how much power can be produced from a given module and inverter, and the racking and tilt of the modules towards the sun. Utility rate details, what you're currently paying for power on both a kilowatt hour basis and demand charge and other fees, so that we can figure out exactly how much you'd save from the power that would be generated from these net metered systems. And then the financial assumptions that go into these models, which would be total system cost based on sort of industry information, current industry information for cost for system development, inflation rate, utility rate, energy rate escalation, project financing is also an important factor. For this, we assumed a number of different scenarios in terms of financing, and we can get into that a little bit later. The tax rate, and then also any federal incentives that would defray the cost of any investment you'd make in a system. And so the outputs from the modeling are, I mean, there are lots of different outputs, but the ones that are important to help understand the feasibility of these systems that we looked at are annual kilowatt hour generation from the solar system, how much you would save on your electric bills, and then net present value, which is a sum of all the positives and negatives in terms of your cash flow and over a 25-year period, and then payback period, how long it would actually take to actually pay the cost of the investment off based on how much you're saving on your electric bill every year. And I included some just example images here to the right, just so you all understand what types of systems we considered. To the upper right here is a carport system. The lower right is a roof mount system. And I thought I had a ground mount system there. Just quickly, the upper right on that, because we'll be using these terms, is a ground mount system, and then the lower right is another roof mount system. Okay, so this is a quick summary of your electric usage at the 3 facilities. The meter numbers, the accounts numbers, and the rate, as I mentioned, is the rate 40, secondary general service. And of all the facilities, the detention center certainly uses the lion's share of electricity. Your total monthly electric bill is around $4,000, and a little over half of that is, as I mentioned, your demand charge. And it's similar for the other 2 facilities. The Fairgrounds Arena, your total bill is around $880 per month. And the Jake Lopez is about half that, with about $438.39. And again, a little over half of your total electric bill for all 3 of those facilities is the demand charge. So I'm going to let Thomas talk about sort of the usage patterns and how that impacts the sizing of the system and sort of the approach for development, and then how that sort of weighed into our thinking in terms of the feasibility.
So what you're looking at here is the recorded monthly consumption for the detention center. And we use multiple years to make sure that there's a pattern of usage, right? Especially after COVID, we've seen facilities have a varied consumption patterns, and we want to make sure that we're looking at the correct thing. So what you're looking at here, you can see that the consumption at the detention center starts going up in May, peaks in July, August, and then starts heading back down. The clear indication there would be that the facility has a high amount of HVAC, temperature control consumption going on. This is very typical for this type of facility. Next slide, please. This one I found was quite entertaining because this is the Fairgrounds Arena. And what we see is that there's fairly consistent consumption at the facility, except for, which we would guess is when the facility is actually being used for rodeos and other fairground, activities. So there's a huge spike in September that the usage quadruples, which makes, the choosing a solar system sort of a special case in this one. And next up is the community center, and albeit there's a little bit of variance between one winter and another, which we can see some seasonal difference to how cold it is or what sort of energy is being used there. The overall pattern for this particular building matches what we would consider to be close enough to use the pattern for considering a solar system to average those two lines out. And again, this shows an up peak coming from HVAC and then a drop down when we're not using the facility as much. So we started looking at the detention center, which is, located below and south of the proposed solar array. We're looking at a ground mounted system, as Dale showed you earlier, where you have rows of panels that are connected to racks. Those racks are typically pile driven into the ground. And then there's a trench that takes all that we put in a conduit underground that then goes back to the electrical system to connect and to get that solar energy into the facility itself. So we determined that there was sufficient space for this size of system. And the next slide will show kind of why we chose this particular size of system. Dale. So the blue bars here is the monthly consumption of the detention center. And the orange that's behind that is the solar production. So the ideal here is to try and limit the amount of overproduction in any month, because the general concept of having a solar system is to basically purchase a certain amount of electricity for the next 25 years, right? I talked to some of my ranching friends about if they could buy diesel for their trucks for 25 years at rates from 10 years ago, would they do it? And they say, yes, they would. And this is the same sort of concept. But you can see that the sort of production matches, it covers a majority of every month's consumption. And to get this, we had to figure out how many solar panels it would take, at what angle, right? Because the optimal angle for a solar panel is perpendicular to the sun. And in this model, we found that a 30-degree tilt at this particular latitude in the state worked really well for sort of a nice solar production curve that works really well with your consumption. Now, we could oversize to cover June, July, August, September, but then you've oversized the system for only 4 months and it's oversized for the other 8. It doesn't make financial sense in this particular scenario to do that. So this is where how we landed, and covering 82% of your annual consumption, I will tell you, is no small feat. So this is a pretty good example of what a good sized solar system can do for a facility. Next up, we have the Fairgrounds Arena. As Dale mentioned, there is a sizable roof, and the structural engineer found that there's sufficient structural members to be able to hold a solar system over the purlins and structural members of the building. And what you see there is a 33.5 kilowatt system. Now, if you remember from the earlier slide, you can move on one, Dale. We have a high peak of consumption. And if looking at the bars again, clearly September is where you're using a tremendous amount of energy. But again, we're trying to optimize a system, not go beyond what is actually needed. And to cover 85% of the annual, in this case, is where we found the sweet spot, both in terms of the financial benefits, but also matching our consumption against our production. And lastly, we have the community center. The structure at the community center was deemed to be one too small to hold the quantity of solar that we wanted, and also that the structure was on the edge of being approved by the structural engineer. So we came up with a concept of a ground mount located to the northwest of the building, similar to the detention center, where we have a driven pile system, solar panels in a 2x2 array tilted at 30 degrees. And the challenge here, of course, is you have to then again trench underground conduit and run those wires back to the electrical system to feed into that building. But if you look at this 20 kilowatt system against the consumption, next slide, please. This facility has really high usage in the winter, but then we sort of averaged it out to hit the high points in March, July, August, most of September, and a good portion of November and December, with a few months of overage. And so covering 76% on this particular account, we felt was the most that we would want to do, and working through all the financial scenarios, 100% didn't produce as much benefit as this one. And that's the sort of the short analysis of how we arrived at our system sizes.
Great, thanks, Thomas. So as Thomas mentioned, our structural engineer looked at the fairgrounds arena and determined that the structure was sufficient to handle the additional weight from I think it was 35.5 kilowatt net metered solar system. And basically what they found was that the additional solar system would result in an additional load of 2 pounds per square foot, which was well within the dead load capacity of the building. And by the way, we did provide the county with our structural engineer's memo that summarized the analysis. So and it's included in our report. So for the case simulations, looking at the financial, the system, the performance, and the financial metrics for each of the systems, we considered 6 different financing scenarios. The first scenario was one where the project was 100% self-funded, where the county would not borrow money. It would just take money out of available funds, and also there was no grant funding dedicated to the project. And then we ratcheted up grant funding and reduced the outlay of the county's own money all the way to 50% in both cases in the final scenario. So Thomas, you want to talk about the case simulation results?
Sure, thank you, Dale. So for the detention center, we've figured out that proposing a 210 kilowatt DC system, and when I say DC, that's the quantity of solar panels in their rating, different than the inverter capacity. This covers 82%, and the way that we arrive at our case simulation is you have to figure out what your estimated generation is per month. Then you have to chart that against the billing rate that the facility's on. So we, created that billing rate in our estimating tool to then put in your original data, right, which is what your recorded consumption is per month, and then subtract out the production from the solar system and arrive at the first year utility bill savings. We have a capital cost, which would be the estimated cost turnkey for building this facility. And then due to the Inflation Reduction Act, government agencies such as Roosevelt County can get direct payment back, and that's a direct reimbursement for 30% of the funds that they put in for a solar system. And it's shown here as a federal income tax credit. We know the county doesn't have a tax credit, but it's still coming from the IRS, so it's easily identified as a tax credit. And then the net investment shows, the subtraction of those two items, the capital cost minus the net investment. Now, for the 100% funded going down to the 50% grant funded, it's quickly to see the payback period changes rapidly, right? So if you were to buy the system straight out, the payback period would be, 16 plus years, which on the commercial side is not optimal. If your solar panels have a guaranteed life of 25 years, it means you're only going to earn money, beyond what you've spent for only 9 years. And so we started adding in the grant funding because there's a number of grants and opportunities for getting money for going solar. And as you can see, we highlighted that right around the 20% grant funded area, that we get a payback period that's under 10 years and has a pretty sizable net present value. And, you know, for my house that I went solar, my payback period was 9. So, you know, a large facility like this is pretty incredible, provided that you can get that 20% grant funding. Next up, we have the community center. And this 20 kilowatt system, we also found that the optimal tilt was 30 degrees. Again, we're covering 76% of the annual usage from the facility. And the bill savings of $1,095 is not incredible, I would say. Capital cost of $84,000, a direct payment again from the feds for going solar at $25,000, and then again your net investment at $58,000. This one required a bit more grant funding to get it to that sub 10 years. And if you could get 40% grant funding on this, we would recommend that you would, you know, get this system installed with a payback of 8.3 years. Lastly, the Jake Lopez. Oh, you don't have that one up? Is that the?
I don't know what happened to Community Center, Fairgrounds. There it is. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, go back to the fairgrounds.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, we
That's
skipped
okay. So the fairgrounds is in between the two, requiring 30% grant funding for a payback around 9 years. And the overall, you know, ask for those three systems to get in under 10 years is sort of where both SMA and Positive Energy feel is the right area, you know, where both the net present value and the payback period feels like it's within the range of one being tolerable, but two also providing a longer period of savings afterwards.
Okay. So just to change gears a little bit, this is on the topic of battery energy storage, which was part of our scope. So just by way of an explanation, batteries can be used to discharge during times of energy spikes to reduce demand charges. Batteries are really expensive and really only cost effective when electric usage is relatively consistent month to month with predictable demand spikes. And I think we don't have the information that we need to understand when the demand spikes happen at either of those facilities, to know, you know, how big a battery would need to be or how effective it would be at reducing your demand charges at either of those facilities. So I think it's a little bit speculative for us to, you know, to recommend batteries at this point. But I think just, you know, looking at electric usage, you know, kind of on a seasonal basis, we can't really say anything about, you know, what happens on a daily or kind of weekly basis in terms of your demand. So at this point, without more information, we determined that battery energy storage, especially given that it's really expensive, wouldn't be cost effective for the county to pursue. You could, you know, ask the utility to install a different kind of meter to collect higher resolution energy usage data, maybe on a 15-minute interval over the course of a month or even a year to get the information you need. But I think generally for these facilities where you're, you know, they don't use a ton of power relative to, say, a larger commercial or industrial facility where batteries are normally used, it kind of doesn't make sense to pursue it. So now in terms of findings for the overall assessment, we, you know, based on our research of each site and the site visits and the information we collected, We determined that in all cases, net metered solar PV systems can be accommodated at each facility by their electrical systems and the utility transformer. So neither the electrical systems or the transformers were limitations for developing net metered systems. We also found that there's adequate area next to the detention center and the community center that can be used for ground mount systems. And then also that land is owned by the county, importantly. And also we found that the fairground arena roof structure can support the additional weight of a roof mount net metered solar system. And in terms of financial feasibility, we determined that to achieve a reasonable payback period, the detention center would need the least amount of grant funding at only 20%, which we think is probably something that the county could obtain through an application or two to a couple of the funding sources we recommended in our report. And the fairgrounds arena is a little less favorable, requiring grant funding at 30%, which may be a little harder to get a hold of. And likewise, the community center even further down the road at 40% grant funding needed in order to achieve a reasonable payback period. So that's where we ended up our analysis. And if you all have any questions, we're happy to stay for a little while longer and answer any questions you may have.
Anybody have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a lot of information.
They've done a very thorough job. This is something that, of course, the commission funded and set forth with Ms. Acosta, and then Ms. Weems wrapped it up for us with them. It is something that's included on the ICIP, and she can highlight that when she gets to the point, but we wanted y'all to have that information and know that we're there and ready now with the feasibility, which is often the first step to applying for any of these grants. So they did a great job for us.
That was gonna be my question. And do we know the probability of getting the grant? Even if it's one of the three projects on the 20, 30, or 40%?
All we can do is ask, and right now we would definitely, as staff, recommend that we just focus on the detention center. As y'all saw from the results, it was the quickest payout. It is not something that when I shared and we met and went over the initial report, it is not something that I would recommend that the board takes on debt or does any kind of public financing. That was one of their options, and I just can't wrap my head around that for this type of project. I feel like the grant route is the way to go. I'm sure Ms. Weems is going to blow us away because I don't love the idea of 20% grant funding. I love like 100%, maybe 50, whatever. But those are the things that we just need more time to explore. We needed to get this presented first so that y'all have the information, and then we have it again identified as a priority on ICIP. Mhm.
Yeah, because I guess the solar panels out there at the fairgrounds on the ground, taking up another spot out there at
Yeah.
the Jake Lopez.
We would look at possibly even relocating those to the road department right behind kind of to where, because right where they kind of have it parked right now, we're looking at having potential RV spots on y'all's master plan. So you could flip it on the other side of the fence and have it on the back of that road lot. And that would probably be more ideal right next to the holding pond. So those are all things that y'all can consider. But again, the net value and the gain for those two areas out there, while we were hoping it would be substantial because of the billing structure with SPS, it's really not something that we would recommend as staff. If we're going to undertake a solar project, we would say, let's figure out how to achieve the detention center. Let's get the detention center, and then let's watch for the gain. Let's watch for the product to come to fruition. We've been engaged in solar and done our initiative. That's where a lot, you see with these local schools and things like that, trying to identify your high user in the detention center. As you saw from those curves and those usages, that's what really we would support as staff for the best first application.
The other thing I thought of is how durable are they to withstand like torrential weather? Whether it's major snowstorms or the hail that we've gotten, are they pretty I mean, can they withstand golf size hail and stuff like that, whether it's on the roof, the ground, or carport style?
Yes, absolutely. In the last 26 years, Positive Energy has replaced about 8 to 10 solar panels in the state of New Mexico due to hail damage. And that's out of several thousand. Every tier 1 solar panel goes through impact testing and is certified to take some pretty sizable hail.
Thank you. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay. We
Thank
will-
you, gentlemen.
Okay, moving on. Now we can recess in the Board of Commission and we will convene in Board of Canvas. I need a motion.
I'll move.
And I'll second to recess the meeting.
Yes.
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 Okay, now we will convene in Board of Canvas. Paul?
Yes.
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 Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners. You had the Canvas notes and the results in your packet. Things went pretty smooth, relatively smooth, no real issues. The absentee board met on Tuesday. There were no provisional ballots issued for the entire election. There were 2 absentee ballots that were rejected. They both came back without signatures. There were 24 spoiled ballots because a lot of people thought they needed to vote for 2 of their favorites in that commission race. So when we explained that you only get 1 commissioner for your district, then we kind of got that straightened out. We had 130 absentee ballot applications by the deadline. All 130 were sent to voters. 107 of those absentee ballots came back by the deadline. And when I submitted this for the packet, we had not received any other ballots back after that deadline. We did on Friday receive 5 voted ballots that we were not able to count because they came in 3 days after the deadline. So we had the 2 rejected ones that weren't signed, 4 that had to be hand tallied, and 101 absentee ballots that were processed on the tabulator. We have not received any complaints from those, the people that submitted the ballot that were not signed. We try to cure those. We send them a phone call and a letter, an email if we have their email address, saying you have until election day to cure. They didn't come in and sign their ballot. They didn't call to complain either. So, and then those 5 that came in on the Friday after, we haven't heard any complaints to them either. But you have to know, if you put your ballot in the mail on Monday, we may not get it on Tuesday. We had 16 same-day registrations processed during early voting and 36 same-day registrations processed on election day. Most of those were address updates. You cannot change from major party to major party during early voting. You have to do that in advance of the election if you want to change from major party to major party. Some of those were changes from minor party to major party, but most were address updates. There were 5 ballots delivered to a secure Dropbox. All 5 of those were here at the courthouse. The Dropbox at the Memorial Building and the Jake Lopez were not utilized. We had 8,325 eligible voters, and 2,112 ballots cast, which is 25.37%. In that District 2 commission race, there of the 1,874 eligible voters, 35% turned out, 656. So that district did a good job about getting the vote out. We had a total of 2,108 ballots cast on the tabulator and then the 4 hand tallies. I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
Are you
for writing
finished?
that in our packet.
I do have it, but it's my,
Are you finished?
yes.
Okay. We will adjourn. I need a motion to adjourn Board of Canvas.
Second.
Got a motion to adjourn Board of Canvas? Dennis?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
and we will reconvene in Board of Commission.
I moved to reconvene.
Second.
Yeah.
Yes.
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 Okay, motion carries. Now here we are.
I'll move to approve agenda item 7B as presented by our county clerk.
I'll second. Got a motion and second. Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
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 Motion carries. Thank you, Mandy.
Thank you.
Item 7C, discussion of 2026-2030 infrastructure capital improvement plan updates. Ms. Weems.
Good morning again. We just wanted to have a little discussion about our ongoing plan for the next 5 years. We're up to FY 26 through 30. There's been some adjustments since the information was sent to your packet on Friday. I've been meeting with department heads. This is kind of a rough draft. We're working through. The deadline to have it submitted is July 12th. So we'll have it kind of fine tuned and bring back to you for approval prior to that date of the next meeting on July 2nd. There was a public meeting scheduled today at noon to get public input on any projects, any adjustments, anything new that they would like added, that you guys would like added. We have the road improvement project still ranked for the 2026 project 1. We haven't received any funding for that to date, so we're leaving that one on there. We still have 2026-02, the Fairgrounds Master Improvement Plan. Our third ranked project is the Roosevelt County Courthouse renovations. Number 4, we have the radio communication digital system. And the top 5, rounding out the top 5, is that New Mexico Regional Behavioral Health Facility.
So we just switch those two?
Switch those two.
Yeah.
We just need it in the top 5. And so we wanted to move that radio digital to forward where y'all could focus on your top 4. Because following your meeting in a couple of weeks, it's just trying to keep it in the top 5 with all of the member counties of that consortium. So, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And Carla's done a great job of finalizing this. Y'all remember, this was a bold step on our strategic plan. And so Carol went over a lot of this information with her as much as she could train, but couldn't take her through the process because, of course, it wasn't time yet to do all of that. So Carol has extensive files and all of this, but Carla worked very closely with our department heads and was very good at following up with the ones that didn't respond as quickly as we needed them to. So she was very persistent to get the information. So that is where we're at. And there are some updates of what was included in y'all's packet, what we have working now, what we'll have after today. So by the time you see it at y'all's next meeting, it will be a final document that then y'all can rest assured we have everything included in that we're aware of. Now, if y'all see something or you want to change stuff, because last year, y'all will recall, you did not want to pursue funding for roads since we had so much in the queue. You wanted the equipment. So everything that was in roads for 25 priority just came down to 26. So you just renumber everything. It is not a simple, easy project or process. Carla has taken classes the whole month of May through ICIP to get all of this handled. But the road 5-year plan just rolled down 1 year for y'all. And so all of that is included. And then any roads that were identified as, hey, we want to have these in here. I know Commissioner Criswell had some. We worked those into the system and worked some out as y'all needed within your districts. That's all, again, something that is very fluid. Y'all can continue to update that and maintain your 5-year road plan as you see fit. And then you're also going to see some of these things like the detention, electrical, and plumbing upgrades. It's still on here as a priority. We are set to receive some federal funding for this, as y'all will recall. So that was in this coming. So we received Arch, which would have been like 24, I believe. And then the detention center will be in 25. And then what we're asking for right now will be in 26. So those federal congressional district spending dollars are always well in advance, and it takes 2 to 3 years to really materialize. But we needed those items that we have received funding for to stay on the ICIP plan. So all of those are in there. And then we also worked in our micro seal projects. Y'all recall last year and the year before, as they've always been a project priority on ICIP. They're not the top 5, but that way it supports our TPF applications that we attended and shows that it remains a priority for the board. I think those are the main highlights. We did great work, and we're continuing our work on that bold step from our strategic plan.
Thank you. With that, I will make a motion to approve item 7C as presented.
Is this an action item?
It does not have to
Oh.
be.
Oh, we don't have to approve it?
No.
Oh, okay.
We'll bring you a fine.
Well, then I'll just take that back. Okay, item 7D. Thank you, Carla. Discussion of anticipated changes to the IT professional service agreement with Yucca. Ms. Hamilton.
Okay, so this is not as much fun of a conversation at this point. So I had the opportunity to meet with Chase last week. He had asked to have a conversation, and he just shared that with his exit from the Yucca Telecom family, they were not certain of what IT services would look like moving forward. And at this point, they do not have a replacement for him. So he just said at this point, what they're anticipating is that Yucca will not continue to be able to sustain the current agreement where they're providing all of our IT services. When y'all have issues with on-site, we have problems with our desktop or our internet or all of that. So at this point, what Yucca is saying is that all of those Encode, Tyler type stuff, the troubleshooting, personnel, detention, all of that type stuff, disposal of equipment, email setups, work within the commission and such, elections, those kind of things, we would need to have our own IT person, which would probably be part-time to start with, on site. They would be able, at Yucca would continue to be able to provide the server services, the support. I mean, we have a lot of that on site, but they would be able to provide that level of technical expertise. They would help with the networks, the equipment as needed, maybe some of the antivirus type stuff. The phone system is still through Yucca, the Microsoft Office licensing, those kind of things. Right now, what we've identified is that potentially it would just need to be a part-time position. They have the same agreement in place with the city, and the city has one full-time person on site at all times for their day-to-day IT stuff. So I'm not sure what that's going to look like. Y'all can remember our operating margin in the budget. So that means something's got to go. Not sure what that's going to be, what the board wants to do there, but this is definitely one of those that we need to start planning for now and having a conversation. Because I think we're going to need to somehow come up with about 45,000 ish at least for some kind of part-time. I'm not aware of anyone in the area that does the contract. That's something else that I've tried to see if there's anyone that might be willing. We might be able to find somebody that's retired. My other thought is reaching out to ENMU to see if there's anybody that's coming up in that computer services, anything in those departments that might be able to do some on-site part-time type stuff. But something in y'all's budget's going to have to change a little bit. So that is the news.
And when is that gonna take effect?
So that's the conversation. Yucca's agreement is up June 30th. However, they are going to give us some time to get all of this lined out. So y'all will get to figure this out. Well, in the new fiscal year budget, so we've got to get something in place for a part-time person. I would recommend we have that funded within your final budget that you look at in July. But we would then have a period of advertising, getting it filled, and figuring out how to look at things. Now, another option could be, if it's just going to be hard because the part-time positions that y'all like approved is one part-time position in the treasurer. So it's going to be really hard to find somebody that will want to do the day-to-day that needs to be in the treasurer and split. So it may be another part-time position. I don't know how to combine it with something that you already did. It's a full-time position for emergency management, and that person has to be focused on emergency management to qualify for the grant. So we can't piggyback this one on there. And then, of course, y'all wanted funding to go to the extension office, and there's no way to loop that in with that. So there's really no workable solution yet that I can identify with what we've currently got out there. But a part-time person to begin with, if we could fill that one, that could be a beginning point of this. All that to be said, we need to have this figured out before calendar year end of this year. So that would give us time to put it in the budget, hire somebody and train, so that maybe by October, November, December, for sure by December we're wrapped up, but wrapping up and training and transitioning, ideally November.
Okay.
So how much were we paying Yucca for IT services?
God
Bless you. I think the contract's like 19,000. It's not much. I mean, they were doing a lot more than what they were probably compensated for at that point, because they were just here to help us with that. They will continue to do that. There will be some change and reduction in that contract, but it's such a low contract amount. It's not going to cover. I mean, their contract isn't going to drop to $0 or 5,000 or something for all the services that they're going to continue to provide.
So there's already 19,000 in the budget for IT services.
For Yucca. And they're going to provide something that we would still need at that point. I mean, we're still going to need to partner with them for network services and all of the infrastructure. Even if you were to find somebody that was an IT expert that could come on full time, there would have to be some kind of transition. So the board could certainly look at going to a full-time person that takes over everything and then try to work that in if that was the pleasure of the board. Chase and I were just trying to find a workable solution that we thought was something that we could get in the works before he.
Okay, so my
Transitions.
question is, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Commissioner. Criswell, go ahead.
So we're going to have to negotiate a new contract that would, with Yucca on for the providing services for the servers and stuff like that. Am I understanding this right?
I don't know that we would have to negotiate. They're basically going to offer what they can do with the current personnel. So we'll have a new agreement, a revised agreement to consider.
Instead of on that part. Plus, all right. So that 19,000 that we have in budget for IT services through Yucca.
For the most part, we'll stay committed to where they're at, because again, they've just been providing services. Arguably the amount of time that Chase has spent on site over here, it's been basically a community service type for them. I mean, they have not been compensated adequately for the amount of hours Chase spends over here troubleshooting.
So what you're
Department
saying, we're
heads and
still going
elected
to be paying
officials.
Yucca 19,000.
It'll be a little less.
Whether it, no matter what.
It'll be a little less, I think. That's what I was told. I just don't think it'll be substantially less than what we're paying. I don't think it'll be like $1,000 or something. We're not losing a big chunk of that.
That's your version. I beg to differ on that. I feel, and this is just me, in my opinion, that if we got 19,000 budgeted for you through that, and they're not going to provide IT services no more, then we need to look at that totally different now. Because we might find somebody else, if we hire somebody else for half time, whatever, then we may be farming out where to get to come in here and work on the servers and stuff.
Right. They're still going to provide IT. It's just not to the same scope of every time somebody has equipment, they won't have a personnel person per se to send over here for that. So servers, networks, equipment, antivirus, phone system, and network.
Where is Chase going?
Floyd
He's
School.
changing jobs.
Floyd School.
Well, that's good. Could he moonlight?
I asked him that, and at this point, he's not willing to commit to that. That position that has been pitched.
Bad Floyd pays so well. Okay.
Actually, those little schools paid pretty darn good for those types of upper management positions. My question was, you answered most of my questions, Amber, within the scope of duties, the services that we're not gonna have, and I was gonna ask the same question. Moonlighting, I like that term, but can we really try to research Eastern and see if we can get somebody that we can contract with? Because when I hear of moonlighting, it's doing something after your regular job that you got, because I've done that most of my life. And sometimes we need someone like immediate within that day. So it'd be hard to find someone that's upper management with the school district to try to have them contract, but it'd be nice to see if we could tap into the computer technology
That's on the
department.
list. Yes, sir.
Nice, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. All right, moving on.
I would also encourage you, if you have any IT needs, go ahead and get those addressed.
Got anything, Paul? Finished? 8A, consideration of resolution 2024-20, approving participation in the programs of the Eastern Plains Council of Governments for fiscal year 2024-25. We've been on that. I sit on that board. I would like us to continue to use it, but I don't know what anybody else has.
And we would need to have the names for the designee and representative and the alternate to plug into the annual resolution.
Okay. So.
My interjection would be that I will support it, but what I stated a couple of months ago is that I think we need Roosevelt County to be more on the table.
Right.
In reference to fully utilize the services that they do provide.
I agree.
But since Commissioner Savage and I will be gone, I think it's the pleasure of the all three, and I'll support whatever you guys want.
What do y'all want?
I think go ahead and make it.
Okay.
I don't need to be served.
Okay,
How long is the term of service
it'll be for a year,
starting?
January.
July.
Oh, July, sorry. July to July. I sit on that board now, and Dennis is the alternate, is the way it is right now. So, but it'll be different with this new one. So whatever y'all want, whatever's y'all's pleasure. Does,
You need to stay roughly.
well, then I think you should be the alternate.
I can be the alternate. Let's go. You know.
I'll make that motion to approve agenda item 8A with that being said.
A second.
Got a motion and a second. Dennis?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Item 8B, consideration of resolution 2024-21, revising the Roosevelt County mandatory training program policy. Ms. Bagwell.
Good morning.
So the resolution is in your packet. We had some concerns brought up from some various employees that some of the annual trainings that we do every year kind of seemed a little redundant with RAP and everything else. So we took it to the safety committee and we all discussed, and there's just a few of them in there that we updated to be every 2 or 3 years instead of annually. That's the only difference. And so I stand for your approval and ask for or stand for any questions and ask for your approval. Ugh. Allergy medicine today.
Okay, with that, I'll second. Dennis?
Yes.
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 Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 9A, request for approval of award of ITB 2024-09 Crush Caliche Materials, the Roosevelt County Road Department to Frank Legacy Trucking LLC. Ms. Hamilton.
Yes. So, Madam Chair, Commissioners, including your packet was the response to the bid for crushed caliche material. Mr. Levacy has actually been learning the business and helping out our current contractor. When we canceled the existing contract and went back out for bid, we felt it was in the best interest of the county at that point. A1 Crushing has been a great partner with the county for years. However, it just got to the point where it was most advantageous to seek the new option. There will be an increase in the cost per ton of caliche. You saw that with the bid quotation form. It was the only responsive bid that we did receive. It is a local vendor, and they have been very strong partners. Both Ms. Weems and myself and Mr. Dominguez served on the review committee to open these bids, and the packet was the bid document was included in your packet as well. So we are just asking, I'm asking for you to approve that award so that we can continue to move forward and ensure we have our caliche material as we need it. This will be effective in the contract starting July 1. So we're in the current contract through the end of June. So.
Thank you.
Got a motion, a second. Commissioner Greider?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Request for approval, 9B, request for approval of the DWI grant award agreement. Nope. Oh, you're gonna do that one? Okay. Number 25-D-G-23 with the Department of Finance and Administration, Local Government Division for $162,000. Ms. Hamilton.
Yes, so Miss Reed had a conflict and she texted me this morning to ask me to cover, told her I would be happy to. So you have in your packet the letter that came from the New Mexico State DWI Grant Council, where it stated that this was our estimated amount of local DWI distribution funds. And when we will receive those distributions quarterly. So this is just an acknowledgement that we are approving the receipt of these. And there is a document for you to get to sign, Madam Chair, as a result of those. And again, that was included in your packet. I would stand for any questions. Darla's done a fantastic job with this program. They're actually looking for ways to expand. They have been out looking and casing county existing property, trying to find new places to build into and what this can look like because they are growing. And she has done a fantastic job of this. So very proud of her.
Second.
Got a motion, a second. Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, I will make the motion to go into executive session pursuant to 10-15-1 NMSA 1978 H2 limited personnel matters and 7 attorney-client privilege information pertaining to threatened or pending litigation, specifically Yesenia Ramirez and Miguel Mendidia versus Roosevelt County, Plummer versus Roosevelt County, ETL, Brown versus Hamilton, and to discuss attorney-client privileged information relating to pending or threatened litigation and/or limited personnel matters.
Second.
Got a motion, a second. Commissioner Lopez? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, we are going into executive session. Does anybody need a break? Are we good?